Hello, everyone. I'm Lonnie with Untitled Nerd Network, brought to you live. We're live streaming on YouTube, brought to you by Infinity Flux, Cards, Comics, and Games out of Hickson, Tennessee. And, yeah, I don't think we had a sponsor last time I talked to you, did we?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, we're here with Alex Ogle, who is the artist behind Midnight. Midnight's the only Hero Cats you've done so far, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Volume 1, I picked up all 4 issues of Volume 1 at Conuga. And I've been afraid. Like, I read issue 1, and then I was looking at the others, and I was like, because you signed every one of them for me, and I was like, I'm just gonna have to pick up a trade because I'm so iffy about opening a book that has a signature on it, and I'm like, I don't want to mess the book up because
Well, you might find a trade here.
Oh, I know. It's right next door, yeah. And they'll actually be over here by, I think, next week, is they're going to move all the comic book stuff over here. But you're actually local to us. You're local to Chattanooga.
Yeah.
So how does somebody in Chattanooga become a comic artist?
Well, I think, you practice and you do all the work behind developing your skills, but then you actually have to go out and start publishing and talking to people. And I just started going to conventions. That's one way to get connected with people that actually want to write books or even want to publish your work. So you can find people that actually want to back you and pay for your projects to be created and that kind of thing. So that's what I originally did. And I did a couple Kickstarter projects too, which I found people to back my work that way as well.
Have you ever, I know you do a lot of stuff. You're getting ready to put out Midnight Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've seen some stuff about it around, and it's actually coming out this coming Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that's just right on top of us, basically.
Sure.
Anything you want to tell us about that series? Spoiler free, because I'm going to read it.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about it. I mean, Midnight is going to meet up with the other Hero Cats in the book, and they're going to fight against a character called Ross Rex, which has appeared in the regular Hero Cats book before. He can reanimate the bones of dinosaurs, and so he's kind of the main villain throughout the 3-issue arc that I'm doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's it like whenever you begin a book? You did Midnight. How does that translate? What you get a script and you have to. I'm completely a newbie when it comes to the comic creation process, especially in the art department. I know you write it and everything, but what does it look like? How do you translate written word to art?
Well, Kyle Puttkamer, he's the creator of Hero Cats, and he's also the writer behind all the issues. And so he writes the scripts for Midnight and sends them to me, and then I review those, and I build thumbnail roughs of the whole book that we can actually read. I letter them as well. And then we review those, talk about the scenes and how the characters should act, and then I end up fleshing them out and then coloring the book as well.
Cool. Okay, so you a little bit of everything.
I pretty much do everything. He hands me a script and he gets back a book. So that's pretty much
how much creative freedom are you given to translate that script into art?
With Midnight a lot, because the regular Hero Cat book, it's the core book that comes out every other month. So that book's been going now for quite a few months and several years now. And that book, he's a little more particular on the art and the consistency of it. With me, I get to be a little more free reign, where I get to play with a lot of lighting and shadows and how I draw the other cats and that kind of thing. I can twist things a little more and bend. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it. So he always thinks it's interesting when I take a different look and take on the cats. So.
Now, what does the script look like?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is that? What are you given to put on the paper?
It's just the dialogue and the descriptions of scenes. Sometimes he includes references to YouTube videos, things from possible clips from movies, things like that might inspire some of the visuals. Sometimes he'll even paste in reference material, like the character's costume, and here's a shot of that character, or here's something that inspires a scene, just a photograph of it. So
now I'm going to throw you a curveball here. We're going to talk about a hot button topic. Okay, I'm sure you heard about the X-Men Gold controversy.
Yeah.
Do you care to give your take on that?
All I can say is that you're usually edited very carefully, and if you have writing and things on those characters or anything, I think all that would be question about what the meaning of that is. And so usually your editor will notice that kind of stuff. So I'm surprised that
It slipped through the cracks.
that made it through. Really, yeah.
Now, thinking about that, have you ever put and hidden things in the art, like Easter eggs or things like that?
Sort of.
Something
like,
that wasn't specifically mentioned in
sometimes
the
I'll
script?
put like characters or things I think represent something in the backgrounds, but it's not anything that would necessarily be controversial or anything. It's just little things that actually kind of give the story more meaning, things like that. So yeah, I hide that stuff in sometimes, but nothing crazy.
Can you tell us a little bit about the character Midnight?
Yeah, he's kind of I would describe him as a cat that thinks he's Batman. That's how
Well, I
usually-
think first we probably need to clarify to everybody. Hero Cats,
yeah.
if they've never heard of it,
Sure.
and like the first time I'd ever heard of it was at Conuga, so I can understand. Hero Cats is basically a group of cats, and they all, of course, look different from each other. And they're a group of cats who are basically heroes, and they're real cats. They're not like humanoids or anything.
Right.
And they, go on adventures, and they've even gone into space
Yeah,
and things like that.
They can't speak to the humans.
Yeah.
One of the cat's abilities, Cassiopeia, she can read, which it plays into the stories a lot because they can figure out what the humans are thinking or something that's happened in the past by reading like a journal or something from someone. That usually works fairly well in mixing in the storylines. But yeah, the cats are just normal cats. Plus, some of them have abilities too.
Yeah.
One of the cats can read minds and things like that. So all those play into how the characters interact with the villains and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. Is like Thundercats. This is not. These are like legit house cats, or ones you would see.
I think that was an idea that Kyle really had because it really helps you identify the cat to your cat. A lot of times the cat a lot of times people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I have a black cat. This reminds me of my cat." And when they asked me to draw the book, I have a black cat, so it just made sense too.
Have you had anybody come up to you yet and said they named their cat Midnight because of the book?
No,
Not yet.
But they do say that my cat is named Midnight.
Oh.
So yeah, I've had several people come up to me and say that. Yeah.
Why did Midnight get a series as
Uh,
opposed to the other ones?
They did I think what inspired it was and why he was the chosen one to get that series versus the other cats is that they did a series of hats, like cat hats and stuff, and his hat was always sell out the most.
Really?
And so they thought that he had a little more individual storyline that could be.
So at some
developed.
point
Yeah.
there was a set of Hero Cats
No, there
hats.
still are. You can buy them still, and they actually put. They sold them out to retailers as well, like through the previews catalog and things. You can buy the midnight hats. But yeah.
That's something I didn't know.
Yeah, if you go to the Hero Cat site, if you just Google it and go to it, you can see the hats that are on there for sale and things too.
Do you think? So I've followed your art for a couple of years before I even knew you were local to Chattanooga, and because I remember the first piece of art one of my friends had gotten me from. You had a table set up at like I think it was like some kind of a outdoor, maybe like a farmer's market.
Yeah.
Like in North Georgia.
Yeah.
And they had picked that up. This was easily 2 years ago. It was right about the time we started the Nerd Network.
Sure,
And it was like Ninja Turtles, and it had your name on it. And I was like, man, what? I didn't know who you were at the time, and I was like, who is this guy? He's local. And so I looked on there and saw some of your work and everything, and then we run into you at Conuga. And your art, this is like, I like your work. I really do. I like it, and it's very distinctive. You don't look at your work and say, who did this? Like, if you're familiar with your work, you know it's you, because you have like very distinctive, like the black and white look to it, and it's really dark. It almost reminds me of some of the older, like, I don't know if you read X Factor in the early 90s.
Yeah, I did.
It had that really shadowy look to it, and that's something that you don't see a whole lot. And do you think that what came first, picking you to do the series or picking the character?
Oh, I think he knew that Midnight was the character he wanted to do.
Okay.
So I think he saw me at MGA Con down in Middle Georgia Con, and Kyle sat across from me at that convention, and he came up to me immediately while I was setting up and started talking to me about the series. So I think he just saw my art, and he knew right then that was going to fit really well.
That's what I was thinking, because you've got a black cat who runs around at night a lot, and I think that your art was perfect. It was like a match made in heaven.
Well, like I said, that Midnight's kind of the Batman cat of the team.
Yeah.
So if you look at Frank Miller's work and things where it's all shadows and like heavy black and white stuff, that really is what I'm inspired by as well, is his work, and plus other artists that I kind of mix together in my head to generate my own style, my own look, and it made sense to me too.
That was actually going to be my next question. Who were your inspirations? Like, who did you look at growing up? Because I know you had to have drawn as you grew up. It didn't just happen.
I looked at a lot of, like, I was an X-Men kid when growing up, so I read Jim Lee stuff and Mark Silvestri stuff, and those guys. Those were my big influences early on. Of course, you don't look at my art and think, oh, that's like those styles, or the early image styles. I really don't do that look, but some of the storytelling maybe that's come through. I don't know. It's hard to tell nowadays, but some of the paneling work, stuff like that. That's some of the things you don't normally spot in artist work, but I think they probably influenced me more on that kind of thing than other artists.
Like talking about panels, are you given liberty to like do the panels as you see fit, or are you given like panel A does this, panel B does this?
Right. Well, I think all writers they're either really strict on that, like they want it to be followed to the T of what they've written, and it's usually 4 or 5 panel layouts is what Kyle writes. Sometimes I'll mix them down to one single panel for a couple shots, maybe bring it down to like a 3-panel page. But most of the time I follow kind of what he's saying, because he's got a pretty good eye for the beat and the timing of things. Not all writers really have that or mesh with as an artist, your vision of what that is. And sometimes I like to extend scenes too and add a couple extra panels here or there just for timing reasons. Because in comics you have this great thing about the speed at which you read and how many words are on the page and what the timing of those panels can be. Like if you show more panels, it slows down the reader and makes it a more intimate scene. So you can really control the pacing with how many panels you use. So that's real important when you're doing storytelling.
When you get that script, how entertained are you? Is it do you read it like a book and play it out in your head as you read it?
I do. I like to actually let my computer read it to me. I'll usually turn it on like and sit back and like close my eyes and like listen to the script. I'll let my Mac like read the script to me. That way I can like concentrate on what's going on, and I don't miss anything that way, because I'll re-listen to it a couple times, and that way it sticks in my head better. If I just read through the script, and I'll read through it when I'm doing the actual work more, like when I'm actually thumbnailing the panels out, but I'll listen to it a few times, just listening to the Mac read my script back to me.
Was Midnight your first published work as far as comics?
No. I did stuff in the late 90s. Right out of high school, I did some work where I was for a company called Maze Inc. They published a story that I wrote and illustrated, and I did a couple of those issues. It was a book called The Iliad. I did it with a friend of mine. We basically took 2 stories. He would do 12 pages of the book. I'd do the other 12 pages. So we just kept combining and told 2 stories per book, per issue. So.
Did it? Have you gone back and looked at some of your old work?
Yeah.
I mean, you know how like I know I could go back 2 years ago and look at some of the stuff that I've done, and I just noticed how vastly we've improved since.
Yeah. I had a big break between that work, because I went off and did some animation and some web design and interactive, and did even develop some games and things like that. So I came back to comics about 4 years ago now. So yeah, between those 2 pieces, there's vast difference in the work that I've been able to do.
So you basically did a comic book and then took a long break, did a lot of like pin-up art.
Yeah,
and
I did
like that.
I started doing those pin-ups that you saw is kind of a first thing to get back into it and kind of develop my style, because that break gave me that ability to look at what I was doing and say, well, I need to change this look and feel and turn it into what my style is. And then I came out of the gate now with a much more consistent look and feel, which you can recognize just by looking at the style of art. So
we actually had a very vulgar comment by one of our regulars. I'm not even gonna read it on the air. I'll let you read the comment.
All right, let me see.
Because I don't want you to miss out on anything.
Okay. That's pretty good. All right.
Yes. Not safe for
Other
work.
people will see that down there.
Yeah. I've completely lost my train of thought now. Thanks, Neil Beowulf. Yeah, he's a talent. He's the one who's actually designed our logos and
Gotcha.
yeah, everything. So he's he jumps in basically every time we stream, just to bust my chops, basically.
Throw you something.
Yeah, but okay, so we've got Midnight Volume 2 coming out.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that. And it's going to be coming out this coming Wednesday, and then you said it's like a every 2 months comic.
Yeah, it comes
3
out every
issues.
2 months. Yeah, the second issue is actually in the previews catalog now.
Okay.
So if you're interested in the series, you can let your store owners know that it's
Any
there.
variant covers or anything?
No, it's just a single cover on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't you have? Wasn't there a variant?
There was a
On
variant
volume
on the
one?
first one. The first volume, the first issue had a variant. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I'm thinking
yeah.
because I'm pretty sure I got it. It
You
was like
probably
a New York.
Oh, there was a New York exclusive Comic-Con cover. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
it premiered at that show.
Yeah, that's what I snatched up. I remember that because I think I got like 2 different covers of number 1, and then I got the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll tell you one part that struck me in number 1 was the storytelling in number 1. Now I was reading it, and you've got these, without spoiling anything,
Right.
it was just kind of a breaking the ice and getting to know the character. And there's some guys who are basically locked up in jail.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like raining and thundering and lightning, and when the lightning flashes, they look up in between the bars and see Midnight sitting there,
Yeah.
and they're like freaking out. And of
Yeah.
course, who's going to believe them? Oh, a cat put me here.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, he goes and in that scene. He goes and checks on the criminals that he's put away.
Yeah,
So,
he says something along the lines of he just likes reminding them who put them there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that is messed up. Like I was actually telling my girlfriend about it a couple of days ago, and like it just fascinated her. I think I might actually be able to get her to read the book.
Hero Cats is a great book if you're not a comic reader to get into, because a lot of times if you like cats or any of that, it's a real friendly book to start reading. And I think the character development is really fascinating throughout the books too. So
Yeah, it's like one of those that's just a good introduction.
yeah.
You have, I can't tell you how many times, like in comic book forums and things like that, you run into people and they're like, hey, I've got a friend or a relative that I want them to read comics, but I don't know what a good first book is. They don't want to throw them in with like X-Men or something like that has just a backlog of like 1,000 issues that you really have to read to grasp everything. And this is something, there's not a huge backstory yet.
Right.
And there's I think somewhere around 24 Hero Cats books.
There's like I think they're up to issue 17 maybe out.
Yeah,
Sure.
I knew it was
around there. It's around there somewhere.
it was well
I see
over
the
a
productions
dozen.
of the book, and I don't know when they hit stores necessarily, so I always get.
Speaking of, I need to have that added to my pull list. But yeah, Midnight's coming out, and
But you're right, it is a great book for all ages as well.
oh, it is.
So
It's definitely.
like we've sold it to real young kids that haven't really gotten into comics. So a lot of the dads will bring their kids in, and so they can actually get into the book, and so it's a good way for them to get into comics.
Yeah, that's one of those you're not really surprised by.
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
get
there's
them, and
nothing
then,
in there.
oh man, this is an adult book.
Yeah, there's nothing in there to be worried about with your kids. Plus, it's written in a way that adults still enjoy it too. So we have readers of all ages buying the books and saying they love it. And
That's
stuff,
the
so-
mark of a good book, is when it's all ages, but still entertaining to adults. And that's pretty cool. So we actually have the trade of Midnight, collects the first 4 issues of Volume 1.
Cool. Yeah. That's 3 issues more long.
3?
Yeah, you're thinking of the variant covers probably for the.
That's what it was. I got 4 issues and had 2 of 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
I was
3
wrong
issues,
on that.
3 issues.
1 through 3.
Mhm.
And we got that coming up. Are you going to be at any? I know we were talking earlier today. You're going to be doing some stuff. We're going to be here at Infinity Flux during Free Comic Book Day. Where are you going to be? Because I know people are going to be hitting all over.
I'll be at Galactic Quest in Buford, Georgia.
Okay.
So it's down just northeast of Atlanta. So yeah, I'll be down there. And
Okay.
that's one of Kyle's stores. He actually owns a couple comic book stores. So the
Cool, did
writer
not
of
know
Hero
that.
Cats, yeah. So
Where's he going to be? Because we're talking to him next week, but I'm not going to be able to get a
he'll
hold of
probably
him.
be at that store as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he's got one in Lawrenceville, so he might move back and forth between those. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. So yeah.
Okay. So if anybody's down in the Atlanta area this weekend, you know where to go. Let's see. I think I actually got somebody local popping in here. Oh, Josh is actually another one of our regulars. He says he's starting to take up drawing lately. Any tips for somebody new? And can you tell us about the time you created your first drawing?
Draw.
Like basically, what was the path
Yeah.
from first drawing to getting a comic published?
Well, I think early on you start wanting to design characters, so you do a lot of character drawings. And sometimes you'll just do a character standing there, which is
Your own people,
pretty much a pinup.
or
Well, sometimes usually you draw the characters that you like,
Yeah.
and then it branches on to you creating your own characters, and then you start figuring out what a panel on a page means, and that's a whole other art form in itself, other than drawing just physically drawing. It's actually storytelling through designing that camera angles and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to that to create mood and using light and really all the nuances of storytelling, like the paneling, like we said, like the speed of how many panels you show to show a moment, or if you make them real jumpy and it's real high action, all that really comes into play, and it's something you have to develop over time and practice. And so yeah, it's a tough art form, really, because it's some of the most amazing artists I've ever met have been comic book artists, because they can just do things so fast and amazing and tell you stories through it.
It's not just drawing; it's translating written word to art.
Yeah, and it's being consistent with and it's knowing how they're going to act. If you think about it, they're creating all the actors, they're creating everything in every scene. You have to imagine so much, and so I'm always referencing like Google Images searches, like tons of stuff, just to see like something I need to put in a background, or how something is constructed, because you start to learn basic shapes, but some of these objects that you take for granted and you don't pay attention to all the time, they're made of shapes that you might forget, and so you always have to like look at photos and go, oh, this is the actual structure of a car, or I drew this car and I left off the side mirrors. Like, people might notice that.
It's like, you've seen the movie Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
You know, like they're sitting there, one dude inks and the other guy draws, and the guy that's inking is like, oh, I really like this street lamp. And he was like, oh yeah, I based it off of the one off of 3rd and Vine or whatever. And so that's a legit thing. Have you hidden real life things that you've seen in your books?
Sometimes there's storefronts and stuff that I know pretty well, and I'm like, oh, I'll put that in there, or I'll put like names if there's signage and things like that. I always like to throw like people's names in there, stuff like that. So
cool. Okay. So there may be like a Chattanooga locale hidden in Midnight.
Maybe. There's not too many in there. I do in Midnight. I definitely keep the backgrounds fairly simple, because a lot of the art is really heavy on the shadows. So,
it is.
The buildings are very blocky, and
it's more of a less is better approach, because the book, I can't really say. I mean, read the book. Read the book. That's the best. That is the best advice I can give, is read the book. It is. It's a mix of really what you said, Batman and cats. Everybody loves Batman. Everybody loves cats.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, the good people anyway. But anyway, Alex, I really appreciate you coming on. Anything else? Any further projects you might want to name drop here?
Stuff in the works, so we'll see.
But you do have stuff going on.
Oh yeah, there's stuff. There's talks.
Any big events coming on in the next couple of weeks? You're going to be at any major cons?
Later this month I'll be at MomoCon in Atlanta.
Okay.
And that's always a fun show, and a lot of people come out for that, so that's always a good time.
Has anybody approached you yet in a Midnight cosplay?
No. I've never seen anybody cosplay. Well, there's a lot of cat people, so sometimes you see like people in cat ears and stuff, but never a full costume or something.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Just saying, one day. It might be this weekend, it might be a year from now. It's coming. Nice. Just giving you warning. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and hopefully maybe before the end of the year we're able to talk to you again. I will say that whenever this book gets rolling, once Volume 2 gets rolling, we're going to have to get together again and talk about it.
Okay, yeah.
I would love that, especially since you're local and we ain't got to fly you in or anything. It really works. So we're going to talk to him after Hero Cat, or after Midnight. Yeah. It's an offshoot of Hero Cats. Midnight Volume 2, Number 1 is going to release this coming Wednesday, which will be the 10th.
Yeah, sounds right.
And we're going to look over it, probably end up doing a comic book review, and we're going to have to talk to you about that.
Sounds good.
So anyway, I'm Lonnie with Untitled Nerd Network, here with special guest, Midnight artist Alex Ogle, local to our Chattanooga viewing area, and we are at Infinity Flux in Hickson, Tennessee. Thanks for watching.